Welcome to the Teaching Bites podcast. Here are your hosts, Fred and Sharon Jaravada.
Hey everyone, Fred here. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia for the ATLIS conference, the Association of Technology Leaders in Independent Schools. And today I have two very cool guests. I'm supposed to have three, but I have two right now. We have Leigh and we have Nicholas. And I'm going to give them the time to introduce themselves, but it's really cool what they're doing. They're doing amazing things, and it's part of our tagline. We want to help you teachers out there, to take your teaching to the next level. Okay? So let's start off with, who's going to go first?
I was just going to say, this is Nicholas here. Although there's only two guests, Leigh and I have the strength of 10 men, so or 10 people in that way. So
Cool.
Really, you've got like 20 guests. Here,
Nice.
So.
Okay, so quick intro. So tell us what you do, and
Sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Nicholas. I'm the Director of Technology at the Brandeis School in San Francisco, a fellow San Franciscan like my man Fred. But
we never met before,
no,
so it's great.
No,
this is the first time we met.
We're internet friends, so this is kind of IRL time for us, which is nice. But we run an awesome technology program and a tinkering and making program there at the Brandeis School, and we're really excited about me being here and about the work that's happening and about the work that Fred's doing. It's really nice sharing out our ideas on a podcast.
Very cool.
And we're just set up a podcasting studio ourselves.
Nice.
And we're podcasting junkies, so it's good
awesome.
to be on this. So.
Very cool. And our next guest.
Hi, I'm Leigh. So thanks, Fred, for letting me be a part of this today. I'm from Concord, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte, and got the really cool opportunity to do a deep dive session with Fred. So we kind of had the coastal connection working with North Carolina and California. But I'm the Dean of Innovation and Technology at Cannon School. It's a JK through 12 independent school. Been there for 15 years, and did I get my title? I'm the Dean of Innovation and Technology.
You are.
So
right.
And I run a big makerspace there. So I haven't always done that. I've been kind of the middle school tech guy for a long time. So like any teacher in an independent school, wear lots of hats, lots of coaching, lots of everything. But really my primary focus right now is getting a really awesome space up and running and doing some cool stuff with kids in there.
And you guys are doing amazing things. I'm watching your presentations, and you guys are doing amazing things. It's making me want to take my teaching to the next level. Okay, so you guys presented, and Leigh and I, we presented together, and actually you, Nicholas, you presented twice at this conference.
Yeah, one definitely better than the other.
Okay.
No, just kidding. So
tell me about the experience, the whole experience, and the title of it. You don't have to go deep in it. But at least quickly just go over what you did and how it felt.
For sure. So yesterday we presented on early Makerspace implementation, and I was lucky enough to be teamed up with a crew from the Leigh School in Honolulu, and
Leigh in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Those fellows. That school is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. They're doing such exciting stuff there, and in a way, it was just sort of like I was kind of it was my presentation, and then like I spent the rest of the time scraping everyone's jaw off the floor when they saw Leilani's work, which is super awesome. But we talked about really like the approach behind setting up a makerspace and some of the pedagogical and curricular aspects of it, and then we sort of shared 3 case studies based on the create build space we have at Brandeis, and then the 2 spaces they have at Leigh. So it was really nice to kind of get in with them and work on it, and
Now, how did you guys connect? How did you guys? Was it Skype?
Yeah, so we hopped on a Google Chat a few days ago, or a Google Hangout, but we'd been sort of sharing out on a Google Slide presentation and sending emails back and forth and figuring out what that workflow was like. But it was super seamless, and we all just kind of jumped in and threw our slides in, put them on a common template, and then checked back in every once in a while. They were lucky enough to work right near each other, so I was kind of the oddball out in California.
Hey, that's cool. I think one of the things about with teachers, we need to collaborate, right? It's good to collaborate outside, and technology has really made us closer that way.
For sure. And it was really good to sort of figure out what their workflow was. I kind of had my own ideas of how we would go about it, and I think they did too. We kind of met each other in the middle and really worked, and it was super cool. Other than the time difference, which I think you guys ran into too. It was tough to kind of schedule that out, but it was a super positive experience, and I tell you what, an hour and 45 minutes goes so fast,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
we were like, how are we ever going to fill up this time? And then after an hour and a half, we're like, we could have 3 more hours and still fill the time. So yeah, there was a lot of great ideas generated at the session for sure.
Awesome. All right, Leigh, we presented together, but I'm going to get your perspective on how our talk went.
I think it went great, and Sarah Hannawald, the executive director of ATLIS, kind of was selling this to me last year, and she's like, I really want you to present at ATLIS, and I'm going to put you, connect you with somebody really great, and you're going to learn just as much from the experiance as you'll be able to teach.
And then you got stuck with Fred.
I did.
Yeah,
It's a bummer, but oh well. I'm still mad at Sarah about that. But all kidding aside, like, she was absolutely right. The opportunity to connect with somebody on the other side of the United States and be able to share ideas with, and not just learn, but also feel very validated with what I'm doing was very very close to what Fred's doing. And we would have a lot of moments where we were where we were saying, oh wow, I do something very similar in our space, and we just had a lot of fun kind of connecting that way. So our our presentation was actually on leading cultural change through our makerspaces. And a lot of, makerspaces are going up and people are popping them in, and a lot of school leaders are like, oh, we need a makerspace because the school down the road has a makerspace. And anybody can go out and buy a couple 3D printers and put some whiteboard paint on the wall and some rolly chairs.
Call it a day, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I've got a makerspace. Now I can put that on my website. But it has to be more intentional than that. And that's what Fred and I were trying to convey in our session was, okay, now you have this space or you're getting the space, but what's the point of the space? How are you going to help these kids learn in that space? And what are you going to actually teach them to do? Because, just the cool stuff that's on the table that you're either using to make or have made is worthless unless the kid learns life skills through that process. Right. And so that's where we got going. And the session was interesting. I mean, we planned it for 3 months, and it didn't really resemble what we set out to do. But we have always said part of that whole maker experience is being able to adapt to different situations and being able to get into a room and be like, oh, I don't have that material. I need to make this different material, and whatever are we going to do? And that's what we did in that presentation. We saw the room, and we actually just really had a fantastic conversation with several other really awesome educators in our presentation, and learned a lot from them, and hopefully they got something out of the presentation as well.
And there was a pretty good audience there, right? Especially there was one person there that was pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
So.
That's the one thing. It's like we share what we know, but what I've learned also, it's all about the film. But we see the similar things. Everything's familiar. We're doing very similar things, very familiar things. But it's like not deja vu, but the other way around. J'ai da vu. Have you heard that term? It's like you're taking something so familiar, but seeing it in a new light. Yeah. So it was just like that for me.
There's got to be a German word for that.
Yeah, it's probably. Oh, by the way, we are at a bar drinking beers.
I mean,
so we're going to toast real quick.
Seltzer. We're all drinking seltzer.
It's okay. This is the unprofessional development podcast.
But yeah, no. Again, it's like there's that moment, and I think you guys experienced that. I experienced it with both of my talks, where it's sort of like not only are you sharing out ideas, but you're also kind of like, oh yeah, like other people are saying this too. This kind of validates the work that I'm doing, and we had that with my second talk today. We did one on getting things done in education, and it was just sort of like one of those room full of yeses, like a room full of nods. Just like a bunch of folks just smiling and nodding, and like it was the most awesome disruptive classroom where people were just calling out and raising their hand, and folks were really like well behaved at first, and they got bold, and it was super cool. And it was just like it was a really fun session that we did, and folks really kind of were like, this is what I needed. Somebody's like, this is the best session ever, and I was like, shh, don't say that too loud. But it felt really good to have other folks being like, nobody's really talking about this. And figuring out that I don't necessarily have an answer to these questions, but if we start the conversation, that's the part, and I feel like in your session you guys really hit on that. It's like there is no answer, but we just need to be talking, and that to me, like when that theme starts coming up, it's like, okay, the work that we're doing is pretty righteous for sure.
All right, gentlemen. So guys, what's one thing or one cool thing that you saw, that you experienced, besides your talk at ATLIS 2016? What's one thing you'll take back with you?
I think the emphasis on coding and programming, and I use those words a lot in my space, and I've obviously adopted a lot of those things because all those tools are great, but unless you're learning how they work and you're teaching kids how to make them work, they're kind of useless. And getting a feel for what other people are doing with programming, and not just sitting down and coding and making the ball go from one side of the screen to the other, but actual flying drones and making Arduino, like doing cool stuff with Arduinos, not just making LED lights turn on and off. The practical application was something that
some purpose. There's a purpose
and that's
to it.
like the plus one on that is that idea of like not only just coding but computational thinking and figuring out how like what that looks like in that larger context is like we're not going to fool ourselves and think that all of our students are going to be computer programmers or coders, but if they have that familiarity, but they also have done that development in terms of shaping the way that they think about learning in computational thinking. Like to me, that was like what Dr. Stager's session was this morning. Was like is right there, and for me definitely Sylvia Martinez's discussion about equity and access and women in STEM. Like that's such an important conversation to have. And like her thanking us as men for being in the room, it's like yeah, obviously we're going to be
it's
here.
It's a no-brainer.
This is a completely important thing, and it's our responsibility.
It's up to us now,
as technology leaders to start that conversation and to keep that going at our schools.
Right. Okay, so how do you now? I'm going to go beyond ATLIS and going back to your worlds quickly. How do you guys engage your students? How do you motivate your students? How do you motivate them? I think it's one question a lot of teachers want to know. They're always asking about how do you do that, especially in today's world.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the simplest, and I'm sure Leigh will be with this too, but it's like just this idea of asking your students questions, right? Don't just go in and be the, try to be the smartest person in the room. That's not the job of an educator by any means. And so whether it's like inquiry-based learning, whether it's like just simply asking them, checking in with students. Get down on a knee and be like, what's going on, and meeting a student on their level. Like to me, that's the best way to engage your students. Is like, how's it going? We did this project with the Shadow a Student Day a few weeks ago, where I followed an 8th grader around for the day, and it was just the most phenomenal day.
Oh, you did? Okay,
yeah,
that's
so
cool.
I did gym class. Like I got changed for gym, and I did gym class.
The teachers knew this.
Yeah. So and teachers would come up and they'd be like, "I'm sorry, I'm not Mr. ColeFarrell today. I'm Nicholas. I'm an 8th grade student. I just transferred."
That's a really cool idea.
It was phenomenal, and it was originally an empathy project, but for the first few classes, our students were like, "Oh, he's just spying on us." I'm like, "No." And then the teachers were like, "He's spying on us."
Right.
I'm like, "No. I'm just trying to get a feel for what the day was like." And like for me, there were so many insights of like, this is like the minutia of an 8th grade student, and this is what it's like. And it's like, you know what? When there's no passing time to be between classes, that's really hard. It's really hard to get to your next class on time. So,
awesome.
So something like that to me, like engaging the students, like the key is just like asking them questions and showing like interest in the work that they're doing,
And mine, from like a more of a makerspace perspective, is giving them opportunities to do what they want to do. One of our school focuses this year, it's part of our adaptive expertise traits, but also a big piece of what we paid special attention to this year was autonomy, and giving those kids the opportunity to come in and just do what they want to do. And if kids aren't screwing around, they're usually doing something pretty cool. And if you give them the opportunity and the tools, and you say, you show them that there's some worth to what they want to do. A good example of that is I had some kids that wanted to do a hydroponic planter this year. Right. So, when they came in, the following week, I had over $300 worth of equipment so that they could build a big hydroponic planter. And I think that they talked about it, but then they were kind of almost expecting, that would be something that, we could do, but we'll never do because nobody's going to believe in us. And, then all the piping was sitting there, and now the kids have hydroponic salad bar day every Wednesday when we harvest the lettuce from their planter that they've created all by themselves.
That's awesome. But now, as a teacher perspective, how do you vet that, or how do you trust that kids will do that? How do you do that?
Well, the follow through is something big, and I always put a tough task in front of one of those things. So I had some kids that wanted to do and this sounds a little silly and definitely not one of the most engaging Makerspace projects we've ever talked about, but they wanted to build a Pokemon website. 8th grade boys wanted to build a Pokemon
8th grade boys,
website.
wow, okay.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
That's wow. Okay, cool.
And,
Yeah.
and I said to the guys, I was like, "Are you going to follow through with this?" Oh yeah! Like how many times have we heard? Oh yeah, I'm going to follow through with that, Mr. Northrup. And so what I made them do was write me a proposal because to get all that stuff hosted, outside of Google Sites and things like that, it's pretty expensive. And they wanted their domain, and obviously I was going to pay for it, but I wanted them to prove to me that they were serious about it. Yeah. So I made them do a little bit of paperwork, and I made them do a little presentation, and they followed through, and they showed me the 350 Pokemon cards they were going to, be able to talk about and all of those things. And, at the end of that time, I was like, you got me. You're good.
You're passionate. You love it, yeah.
And you know what? Even if that project falls on its face,
how could it though?
Oh, it can. It probably will.
Yeah, we've been there, right?
Does ICANN have a .Pokemon domain? Because if not, we should rally for it. That's pretty awesome.
We should. And the other flip side of that, because that was the kind of success story, but back to the hydroponic planter, one of them was the aquaponic, and I had an 8th grade boy that he was like, "Oh, we need to do fish." Once he saw this thing coming in, and he's like, "I'm going to do I want to do an aquaponic planter." I'm like, all right, I'm not going to use any names here, but I'm like, all right, exact same exercise. I want you to write me a proposal about how often you're going to clean it, how you're going to feed it, how you're going to check the chemicals, because Mr. Northrup does not want a fish tank in his room at all. But if the student was going to do a lot and lead a club or something like that, I'm totally in. So the first week went by. I was like, "Where's your proposal?" "I'm working on it." Needless to say, I don't have a fish tank in my room.
Okay, good.
That proposal never amounted to anything. But once they saw that, making something awesome is hard. Like, it's not just something that somebody's going to hand you on a plate. There's going to be some effort involved. Yeah. And once kids understand that and they realize, you better take me seriously. I'm going to take you seriously. Cool things can happen.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. I got to try that. You got to do that hard work up front. Right?
Yeah. It's like, give me your elevator pitch. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so give me a ta-da moment. A ta-da moment that you, in your teaching, something that really just blew yourself away, boom, and I want to share this, something cool. Or it doesn't even have to be that big, but something okay, this is good stuff. Your ta-da moment.
Give me a minute on this one.
Okay.
And I just ate an Irish banger.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to
all right,
for
cool.
a second.
And I got one that I can go with.
Okay, all right, okay.
I'll work on
all right, Leigh.
So I apologize to you guys because we kind of talked about this yesterday in the session, but one of the ta-da moments for the Canon School this year in our space was the creation of a quadratic sound diffuser, and the kids made it out of K-cups. And the kids worked really hard for 6 weeks, and this is going to be the abbreviated story. Hopefully Fred will put some email information or some Twitter stuff on there.
I'm going to ask you about your contact information. People get in touch with you.
Cool. If you're more curious about this project, I'd love to talk to you more about it. But the kids built a quadratic sound diffuser out of recycled K-cups to solve some problems. And it turned out to be really cool. And over the course of 6 weeks, they built a quadratic sound diffuser, and they cleaned out 1,800 K-cups to make this. And they worked really hard, and they talked to math teachers about what a quadratic formula is, and they made it, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they built it, and then they tested it, and they realized that it actually made the room louder. And what was so cool about that is that in independent schools, when kids work hard and they do everything right, they are expected to be rewarded with an A. And that's not the way the world works. And to teach these kids or give them opportunities to fail even though they did everything right is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful opportunities we can give a kid, because then they finally learn that it's not about the grade. It's not about, that validation that, okay, they did it correctly. It's about the learning that went on before the result was achieved, and just some really special learning moments came out of that. And the kids, they were actually little scientists. And we had the conversation. What awesome thing ever worked the first time? Nothing ever works the first time, and they got to experience that firsthand, which was really cool.
But they got that out of the way. That failure, they got that out of the way, and then they could start getting better and better and better, faster.
How many times as adults have we failed? We fail constantly.
All the time.
And those are the
I failed waking up this morning at one time.
We saw you roll into the session. Yeah.
That's awesome. Really cool.
Yeah, for
Nicholas?
me, that was awesome. But yeah, I feel like I've got a rinky-dink one compared to that. But for me, we're setting up our build space, which is our sort of woodshop, high-def prototyping studio this year. And we're setting it up with 6th through 8th grade students who are there on elective. And one of the tools we brought in was a scroll saw. And some of the tools we definitely specifically designed to bring into our studio, and that one was sort of like that looks like something we should have. And for my own part, I'll say that there wasn't much planning behind that, but it looked pretty cool. So,
right.
So we brought it in, and 3 students unboxed it and set it up, which was awesome. Followed the instructions, built it, and then they said, "So how do we use it?" And I kind of raised my shoulders and said, "I don't know." And I was like, I don't know, but there's a How to Scroll Saw book arriving next week. And they're like, okay, so this is Friday. The book was due to come Monday. They looked at each other. They pulled out their phones. They went onto YouTube and watched a video on how to scroll saw. And like this sort of like New Yankee Workshop, This Old House type video came on. And they watched it. They watched about 7 minutes of it, put the phone down, grabbed a piece of wood, and immediately started scroll sawing. And cut out their names in a piece of reclaimed redwood, and that happened within probably about 30 minutes. And it was like, okay, that's what learning looks like. And it looks like me not being scared of not knowing, and them taking action and knowing that they have the agency and the tools to do it. And to me, that's the aha moment of like, yep, this is what learning looks like in a makerspace.
And one of the things we talked about in our session yesterday was the whole maker ethos, and one of those is do it yourself. Don't wait for Nicholas or Fred or Leigh to show you how to do something. Just go figure it out. We didn't have YouTube when we were growing up, but oh my gosh, the trouble I could have caused with learning how to do different stuff would have been awesome. But now kids are just constantly waiting for a teacher to tell them what to do next, and we have to stop that. And I totally agree with you, that moment.
To me, it was like, this is learning. This is what learning looks like in this space. And like in hearing your session yesterday, it's like, yep, that's it. And that's, to me, like that's one of the common themes of like when you empower students and you give them that agency, they're going to take that action.
Well said.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. All right, guys, a couple more questions left. All right, so time-saving tip. How do you save time? And I know you, Nicholas, had a getting things done.
Yeah, I don't want to waste your time with that. But no, we did.
But give me a time-saving tip for our teachers that they can take now, or we consider for next year, something to save them time.
Yeah. For me, it's about. I have 2 because whatever. I'm not just going to follow the rules. But one of the things I do is like. We like to calendar time into our schedule to do specific things, like say you calendar time in to do a project or calendar time in to read a book, and especially with classroom teachers knowing that their time is really tight, like be really disciplined and really like set your time and be like, this is my time and this will not be interrupted for this. And the other thing we do is like we really like to try scheduling mail. So like if working towards inbox 0, and if there's a mail that you're not ready to process, schedule and have it delivered to you at another time, and that will like free up sort of your.
Is there an app for that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different apps. So like I use Airmail on iOS, Mailbox before it got before they put it in the ocean. That one worked really well. But any app that you can have, Boomerang, I think on Gmail on the web works. But if anything that you can do to sort of clean out your inbox and get it as low as possible, the line we say is your inbox is not your to-do list.
Right.
And so really figuring out how you can manage, your brain is only set to do a certain number of things, and as clear as you can keep that, that's where your ideas can come from.
That's awesome, it is.
That's so awesome, and I just got like 2 ideas from you because I am such a time waster because I love to tinker and I love to play, and so
it frees up time for me to do that.
And the new toy comes in and I see the box come in and I'm like, I know I have to do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to do this, and being able to kind of calendar my time, and I'm going to re-listen to this podcast and try and reflect on some of those things. That's really good. And I'm going to go in a completely different direction. And again, I know I keep coming back to the whole Makerspace concept. I'm not speaking much bigger than that, but a lot of making takes prep materials, and a lot of you don't really have the time to cut every piece of wood, to drill every hole, to cut every piece of PVC when you have 80 kids coming in for a 45-minute class period. And we talk about proving worth to teachers and things like that. they need to be able to see that their kids can come in, make something, and their curriculum is enhanced, and it has to be done quickly. If their impact is 1 day's worth, but that project takes 4 classes, then all of a sudden teachers are like, well, I'll dedicate 1 class period per year to the Makerspace because that's all they can afford to give. Right. So I have to do a lot of that work up front. So my kind of time-saving tip is I have a group of, and they're boys, which I know is stereotypical, but I have an 8th grade Makerspace prep team, which I say prep team assemble. That's always the subject line. And these little boys, like they just want to do, they're like little worker bees, and they come, running at their study hall, and they're good students, so they can afford to miss it, and they're like, all right, Mr. Northrup, what do you need? I mean, like, I need 80 4x4 pieces of 1/4-inch plywood cut, and poof, there it is. Like by the end, at 30 minutes, and these guys are just like, making widgets, and they're just so excited to be a part of it. And the next day, when those kids come in, and all of those pieces of plexiglass are cut, all of those pieces of wood are cut, the holes are drilled, and I'm not taking anything away from the experience that those kids are having the next day, because they just kind of get to focus on the learning, on the making and the learning, but they don't have to do the meaningless prep work associated with it. Those boys have like a sense of pride. They're like, I did that. I made that big pile of equipment that you guys are getting ready to make cool stuff with. And so my maker prep team saves me hours every week.
And other teachers, not in a Makerspace, but they can use you can take that concept and have their students do something else, prep something up.
Yeah, my wife tried to have students grade her tests, and that didn't go so well. Just teasing.
All right, guys, last question. And this is a big one. What is the best advice you can give teachers? What's the best advice?
We love you. That's the best advice, really. No, just keep going strong. Know that you're supported by your administration, by your leadership, and by your students. Your students really need you, and the work that you're doing is really, you're doing God's work. Really, the teachers are doing the most phenomenal work out there. So, as a school leader myself or administrator, I really appreciate all of what our teachers do, and as a about to be kindergarten parent in another district, I really appreciate what those teachers are going to do for my kids.
I'm going to quote, because I want to piggyback off that, and Vinny
for the Vin.
He told me last night as an administrator, be the black.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was really touched by that, because he was talking about, we want our teachers and our kids to be stars and to shine brightly. But as administrators, we need to take a step back and be the black that's behind that, because those stars don't shine brightly unless there's pitch black behind that. Yeah. And nobody notices. Nobody says, oh, that star is beautiful because of the black. And again, I'm just totally stealing his words from last night, because I was really touched by that. But, we have to do all of that prep work, all of those long nights, so that our teachers can show up and just have these dynamo moments. Like my 7th grade science teacher rolled in, and there was a 9-foot beach ball in there and a 3D printing project that, I had worked countless hours on. And I had a kid that just showed up and saw the 9-foot beach ball, and he literally stopped in his tracks, and he goes, I love science. And he just looked at her, and he looked at his teacher, and he was like, just thankful of this opportunity. Right. He had no idea what we were going to do with the beach ball. He had no idea what was going to happen today, but he knew he was in the Makerspace, and he knew that there was a 9-foot beach ball hanging from the ceiling, and he didn't care what he was doing. And so I felt like that was an opportunity where I got to be the black. I got to sit back and watch this teacher shine and watch this student be totally engaged with learning.
Awesome advice, gentlemen.
And keep listening to Fred's show. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's actually my number one tip. Yeah, too.
Well, okay, guys. Thank you guys very much for joining our show. But before we leave, I want our teachers, if they need to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Real quick.
You can find me on Twitter. It's at @ColeFarrell, NCOLEFARRELL. And I'd love to find you there for sure. And our Makerspace is at createbuild.space.
Cool. And I'm at Leigh Northrup, Leigh, Leigh, Northrup, Northrup. There's a goofy picture of me kayaking there, and I'm usually in front of a mountain or doing something outside. So I'm not the nerd inside. Those are the pictures I like out there. So
that's me.
But I look forward to connecting with anybody who wants to hear more about what we're doing over in North Carolina.
Yeah, I highly suggest. Thank you, guys. I highly suggest you guys listening. check out what these guys are doing, Nicholas and Leigh are doing. They're doing amazing, amazing things. Connect with them. Let me know if you have any questions also, and then we'll get you guys started. All right?
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys
Fred.
for listening. Thank you guys, gentlemen, for doing this. I appreciate it. All right, guys.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next one's on me.
No, I got it.
Thank you for listening to the Teaching Bites podcast at www.teachingbites.com.